Section 2.6, the distributive property. Our goals for it is I can use the distributive property, and number two, I can simplify expressions by combining like terms. First, for some notes before we get started with some problems. So the first thing we want to have is in a term that is the product of a number and a variable. The number is the coefficient of the variable. For example, if I have, because we're talking about the product of a number and a variable, if I have 14x, then 14 is the coefficient. If I have negative 17y, then negative 17 is the coefficient. We also have things called like terms. And these are terms that have the same variable raised to the same power. Remember, terms are separated by plus signs. So like terms are terms that have the same variable raised to the same power. Constant terms, such as negative 3 and negative 5, are also terms. These are called constants because they are just numbers that are all by themselves. So you can think of all the counting numbers and all the negative numbers. So if you have negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, those are all constants. And then lastly, we have an expression is simplified if it has no grouping symbols and if all the like terms have been combined. Let's take a look at some examples. We're going to use the distributive property. Now, there's two ways to do the distributive property. One way kind of slows things down. Most people don't like it because it slows things down, but it allows you to see your answer a little bit better, and that's to multiply vertically. So I'm going to take my longer expression, in this case, y minus 3, and I'm going to multiply by negative 2. So I'm going to put it down here just like if I had a 2-digit number and multiplied by a 1-digit number. Now I'm just going to do the multiplication. I'm going to take negative 2 times negative 3, which is positive 6. Negative 2 times y is negative 2y. And there's my answer, negative 2y plus 6. So let's try that method with letter B. So if I do that with letter B, I'm going to take my longer expression, put that on top, so 6 minus n. Put my smaller expression on the bottom, so it looks like it's multiplying two terms by one term. So negative 4n times negative n, negative times the negative gives us a positive 4n squared. Negative 4n times 6 is negative 24n. There's your answer. Let's look at the next one. So if I do the next one, I'm going to take my longer expression, negative 3 minus h, and I'm going to multiply by h. So h times negative h gives us negative h squared. H times negative 3 gives us negative 3h. If I do this one, I'm going to take 7 plus 2y, and I'm going to multiply by negative 3. So I'm going to take first 2y times negative 3, get negative 6. Negative 3 times 7 is negative 21. So I have negative 21, and I almost forgot my y, minus 6y. I knew that I forgot my y because these are like terms we're going to talk about here in a second. So that's one method to solving using the distributive property. Another method that you can use is like this. So we don't get confused, I'm going to make up a line. So the other method that a lot of people will use, just because it seems a lot more time-saving, is to take negative 2 and multiply by y. So negative 2 times y is negative 2y. Negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. So instead of doing vertical multiplication, they will just draw arrows and say, hey, negative 2 times y is negative 2y. Negative 2 times negative 3 is plus 6. If I look at this one, I have negative 4n, and I'm going to distribute this into 6 minus n. So negative 4n times 6 gives me negative 24n. Negative 4 times negative n gives me plus 4n. n squared. Now you could do this for the rest, but you have to decide if you like the vertical method or if you just like to do the arrows. It's up to you which one you like. You might have been taught something else in a previous math course. That's fine. Do whatever feels comfortable to you. On the back side, what we're going to do is we're going to simplify by combining like terms. So if we simplify by combining like terms, we're going to do negative 11d plus 5d. Now again, what I like to do is I like to line up all my like terms because it allows me to see what my like terms are. So for example, I have d's. I know that those d's can be added together. So my d's remain the same. Now I'm just going to take 11, negative 11, and I'm going to add 5. So negative 11 plus 5 is negative 6d. Now that requires a little bit of work, and a lot of people might not want to go through that effort, so they might just say, hey, negative 11 plus 5 is negative 6, and I know that they both have a d, so they will be a d result. All right, let's look at the next one. So if we do the next one, we have 17s. I also have a negative 12s, so I'm going to line up those two because I know that those work out. I also have a negative 8. So by doing it vertical method, you can see that your variables line up. So my s's are here. I know this is going to be an s. And then I'm going to have 17 minus 12, which is 5. Now, if you notice, my 5 and my s look a lot alike. So when I'm doing s's, a lot of times I will kind of make the money sign s. So that way I don't get it confused with the 5 and an s. The 8 doesn't have anything that can combine with, so we just leave it in that form like that. I like it doing vertical method like this because a lot of people might try and combine the s's with the 8. You can't do that. Now, of course, you can do this without the vertical method. All you'd have to do is say, hey, 17s minus 12s gives you 5s. And then you have minus 8 left over. However you want to do it is fine. As long as you get the right answer, that's all I care about. In this case, I have a t cubed. And then I have a 3, so 3 plus t cubed. And then I have my minus 7. This doesn't have a variable, so I'm going to line up my minus 7 below the 3. So 3 minus 7 is negative 4. T cubed doesn't have anything, so there's my answer. On letter D, I can line up my variables. I have negative y, and then I also have a 4y, and I'm adding it. So negative y plus 4y gives me 3y. There's my answer. Now, if you've done this separately, like I said, do it however feels most comfortable to you. All right. On example 3, now we're putting together both parts of what we just learned. We're doing both the distributive property and we're doing like terms. So if we're doing the distributive property and you like to do it using the vertical method, I'm going to use the vertical method. You could also use the arrows. But just to do this, I'm going to say 2 plus z. And I'm going to multiply this. Whoops, I don't know, I just drew that line, but I'm going to multiply this by negative 3. So negative 3 times z gives me negative 3z. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. The 7 I haven't touched, so I'm going to put that right there. And I know when I multiply this out, I'm going to get negative 6 minus 3z. We want to combine like terms. So 7 minus 6, these are like terms, gives you 1 minus 3z. There's a lot of work there, so I'm going to box in my answer. So that way we can find out that my answer is 1 minus 3z. If I do this one, I want to figure out what 4x times x minus 5 is. So I want to make sure that I'm multiplying 4x by everything inside x minus 5. So 4x times that negative x is negative 4x squared. 4x times 5 is 20x. So now I can rewrite it up here. So this will be 20x minus 4x squared minus 2x. My like terms, I know this and this are both like terms because they both have an x. I know the negative 4x doesn't have anything. So I'm going to say negative 4x squared. 20 minus 2 is 18x. Part C, I'm going to first figure out what 2w times 4 is, or 2w plus 4 times 3. So 2w plus 4 times negative 3. I'm going to multiply these out, so this will be negative 12. Negative 3 times 2w is negative 6w. So I'm going to rewrite it up here, negative 6w minus 12 plus w. Now my like terms, I know I have negative 6w and w. Negative 6w plus w is negative 5w minus 12. All right, letter D, I have to multiply these two numbers, this monomial by this binomial. So I'm going to take 5 minus q, I'm going to multiply it by 3. So this will be negative 3q. 3 times 5 is 15. So I know up here I'm going to have 15 minus 3q minus q. My like terms are those with the q's. So negative 3q minus q, or negative 3q plus negative q, gives me negative 4q, and then plus 15.